Hello and welcome. If you've found yourself here tonight, perhaps carrying the weight of feeling lost, confused, or uncertain about where you're going, I want you to know that you are not alone. These feelings are as natural as the night itself, as common as stars in the sky, and they do not mean anything is wrong with you. There are moments in all of our lives when the path ahead becomes unclear. When we wake in the morning and feel a strange sense of not knowing quite who we are or where we're meant to be. These moments can feel heavy, confusing, sometimes even frightening. But I want to tell you something that I hope will bring you comfort. Feeling lost is often the beginning of being found. Tonight, as you settle into your bed, as you let your body relax into the pillows and blankets that hold you safely, I want to invite you to listen to a story. Not a story with answers that you need to find immediately, but rather a story about a gentle journey through confusion toward inner peace. A story about discovering that sometimes, the path becomes clear not when we struggle, but when we finally allow ourselves to rest. You are safe here. You are warm. And whatever you are feeling right now, the confusion, the uncertainty, the searching, it is exactly what needs to be felt. There is no rush to fix anything tonight. There is only the soft sound of this voice, the rhythm of your own breathing, and the slow, beautiful passage of time as you journey toward sleep. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw soften. Let your eyes grow heavy. And as you do, come with me into a story. There once was a person named River. Not a river of water, though we'll meet water in this story soon enough. River was simply the name given to this soul at birth, and it seemed fitting, for River felt that life was always moving, always flowing in directions that didn't quite make sense. River lived in a small village nestled between gentle rolling hills. It was the kind of place where everyone seemed to know exactly who they were. The baker woke early and baked. The gardener tended the plants. The weaver worked at the loom. Everyone had a place, a purpose, a clear reason for being, but River. River woke each morning feeling like a guest in someone else's life. Every role tried on felt slightly too tight or too loose. Every path suggested by well-meaning friends and family members seemed to lead somewhere that River's heart wasn't quite calling toward. And so River spent days and weeks and months walking through the village, watching others move with such certainty while carrying inside a quiet, persistent ache of not knowing. This feeling, this not knowing, had been growing for so long that River had almost learned to live with it. Almost. But on the night of our story, something shifted. The evening had begun like any other. River had returned home to a small cottage with pale blue walls and a garden that was slowly becoming wild with neglect. Inside, there was tea left to grow cold on the table, and a book whose pages River had been turning without really reading. The day had felt long, and the feeling of lostness had felt particularly heavy. As the sun descended beyond the hills, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose and deep plum, River stepped outside. The air was cool, carrying the scent of distant rain and something else, something like relief, like permission to finally rest. And in that moment, as River stood in the twilight, something quiet happened inside. A small voice, so soft it was almost easy to miss, whispered, "It is all right to not know right now. It is all right to rest." This voice was not harsh. It was not demanding. It was the voice of deep kindness, the voice of the truest part of River's own heart. And with it came a realization that the exhaustion River had been feeling was not from moving in the wrong direction, but from the constant struggle of trying to figure out the right direction. What if, River thought softly, I could simply rest for now? River decided, in that gentle moment, to take a walk. Not a determined walk with a destination in mind, but a slow, wandering walk, the kind where your feet simply carry you and you follow them like a child following a butterfly. The village began to quiet as evening deepened. The shopkeepers closed their doors. The street lamps began to glow with warm, honeyed light. River's walk took them away from the familiar streets, toward the edge of the village where it met the wild forest. The forest was called the Listening Woods by the old ones, though River had never quite understood why. It seemed like a curious name for a place. But as River stepped beneath the canopy of trees, where the last light of day was filtered through thousands of leaves into soft, dappled gold, something shifted. The air here was different. It was thicker with possibility, yet somehow softer. It was quieter, yet somehow fuller of sound, the gentle whisper of wind through branches, the distant call of birds settling into sleep, the subtle rustle of small creatures making their way home. River walked slowly, and with each step, something inside began to loosen. Not the lostness, that was still there, a constant companion. But the tension around it began to ease. The struggle against it began to soften. The path, and there was a path, though it was narrow and sometimes hard to see, seemed to wind deeper into the forest. And River followed it, not because they knew where it led, but because following it felt more honest than not. Time moved differently here. River couldn't have said if they'd been walking for 10 minutes or an hour. The sky above, glimpsed through the leaves, had transformed from rose gold to deep indigo, and the first stars had begun to appear like soft whispers of light. After what felt like both a moment and an eternity, the forest opened into a clearing. The clearing was circular, and in its center was a still, dark pond. The water was so calm, so perfectly undisturbed, that it reflected the sky above like a mirror. And in that mirror water, River could see stars. Hundreds of stars, thousands of stars, so many that it was almost overwhelming. But here's what was most curious. The stars in the water were not arranged quite the same as the stars in the actual sky above. The patterns were different. The constellations didn't match. And yet, they were equally beautiful, equally real, equally perfect in their own arrangement. River sat down slowly at the edge of the pond, letting their legs stretch out before them, and gazed into this strange reflection. A realization, soft and true, began to form. The stars, River whispered to the night air, are not lost. Each one is in exactly the place it was meant to be. But from different vantage points, the patterns look completely different. The arrangement makes no sense, until you realize that the arrangement was never meant to be the same. As River spoke these words, a gentle breeze moved across the pond, creating tiny ripples. The reflection of the stars broke apart into shimmering fragments, and for a moment there was chaos, fractured light, broken patterns, confusion. But then, slowly, as the breeze ceased and the water grew still once more, the reflection reformed. The stars returned. The beauty remained. Perhaps, River continued, speaking to themselves in that quiet voice that was both question and answer. I am not lost. Perhaps I am simply looking at my own reflection from an angle I haven't quite understood yet. Perhaps the journey is not about finding the right path, but about realizing that I have been walking on it all along, and I simply couldn't see the beauty of the arrangement. River sat with this thought for a long time, breathing slowly, watching the stars breathe back through their reflection in the water. And with each breath, something inside grew quieter. Not quieter in an empty way, but quieter in the way a forest is quiet at night, full of soft life, full of presence, full of peace. After sitting by the pond for what felt like hours, River's body began to tell them something. It was cool now, truly cool, and there was the promise of nighttime chill in the air. River's limbs were beginning to feel the damp of the earth, the gentle ache of a long day of feeling. River stood slowly, carefully, and noticed that on the far side of the clearing, partially hidden by trees, there seemed to be a soft, golden glow. It was the kind of glow that comes from firelight, from the warmth of a home. The kind of glow that calls to something deep inside us. Something that remembers what it means to be held safely. River wasn't afraid. In this moment, with the stars watching overhead and the peace of the forest all around, there was nothing to be afraid of. And so River walked toward that golden light. The path to the cabin was short, just a few steps, as though it had been waiting for River to notice it. The cabin itself was small and made of pale wood that glowed almost silver in the starlight. But its windows were warm and golden, and through them, River could see the flicker of firelight. There was no door, River noticed with wonder. Or rather, the door was simply open, had always been open, waiting patiently for whoever might need to step inside. River stepped through, and warmth enveloped them immediately. Not the overwhelming, rushing kind of warmth, but a gentle warmth that seemed to come from everywhere at once. There was a fire in a hearth made of river stones, and it crackled softly as River entered, as though greeting them. Inside the cabin was simple but perfect. There were candles burning in corners, creating a soft amber light that made everything seem safe and slightly dreamlike. There was a chair by the fire, large and cushioned, with blankets draped over its arms. And beside it, on a small table, was a cup of tea, still steaming, still warm, waiting. River sat in the chair, wrapped themselves in the blankets. They were soft, woven from something that felt like clouds, and reached for the tea. It was warm and gentle, tasting of honey and chamomile and something else that River couldn't quite name but could only describe as comfort. As River sat, gazing into the fire, they began to notice something beautiful about the flames. They didn't move in a predictable way. They danced. They flickered. They rose and fell. They sometimes seemed to move backward. Sometimes they suddenly leapt high, and sometimes they settled into glowing embers. And yet, the fire was always fire. It never stopped being itself, even as it constantly changed. "I see," River said softly to the fire, and to themselves, and to the night. "Change is not confusion. Movement is not lostness. A river flows in many directions, but it is still a river. And I am still myself, even as I flow and change and explore different paths." The fire seemed to brighten at these words, and River smiled. A real smile, the kind that comes from recognition and relief and the deep knowing that something important has just been understood. River sat by the fire for a very long time. Outside, the night grew deeper. The stars moved through their eternal dance across the sky, wheeling slowly from east to west, just as they had done for billions of years. The wind outside whispered through the trees, a gentle conversation between the forest and the night. Inside the cabin, River was growing sleepier. The warmth of the fire, the comfort of the blankets, the soft glow of candlelight, and the knowledge that they were exactly where they needed to be all combined to create a feeling of deep rest beginning to settle into their bones. But before River allowed themselves to drift into sleep, they wanted to understand one more thing. They wanted to know how they would carry this feeling, this peace, this acceptance, this knowing that it's alright not to know, back out into the world. Back to the village with its certain people doing certain things. Back to the days when the feeling of lostness might return. River closed their eyes and asked this question silently, internally, to the deepest part of themselves. And as they did, they felt an answer begin to form. It wasn't a voice, exactly. It was more like a knowing, like a memory they'd always had but had forgotten they'd had. The answer was this: you do not need to carry anything. You need only remember that you can return here whenever you need to. This place, this peace, this acceptance, this warmth, is not outside of you. It is within you. The forest was inside you. The pond was inside you. The fire is inside you. And you can return to any of it simply by allowing yourself to rest and listen. River felt tears gathering at the corners of their eyes, but they were not sad tears. They were tears of recognition, of homecoming, of finally understanding that they had never really been lost at all. They had simply forgotten, for a little while, that they belonged to themselves. As River's eyes grew heavier and heavier, as the boundary between waking and sleeping began to blur, something lovely happened. River began to drift into a kind of extended dream, The sort that happens in that beautiful space between consciousness and sleep. In this dream, or perhaps it was not quite a dream, but a vision, or maybe a memory, River found themselves walking along a river. Not a river made of water, though it was wet and fluid, but a river made of light. It was the accumulated light of every good moment, every moment of rest, every moment of being held and understood. And walking alongside this river of light were other people. River recognized some of them as people from the village. The baker was there, but also, the baker was lost too sometimes, though River had never known it. The gardener was there, and the gardener too felt uncertain sometimes when the plants didn't grow as expected. The weaver was there, and the weaver sometimes wove patterns that tangled and confused them, patterns that had to be unraveled and begun again. We are all walking the same river, the weaver said gently to River in this dream. We are all flowing in our own ways, at our own paces. And sometimes our paths cross, and we walk together for a while, and that is beautiful. And sometimes our paths diverge, and we walk alone, and that is beautiful too. The river keeps flowing either way. The stars keep burning either way. And we keep becoming ourselves, discovering ourselves, in the walking. River understood, in the way that you understand things in dreams, that this was true. That loneliness and togetherness, certainty and uncertainty, knowing and not knowing, they were all part of the same journey. They were all part of the river. And as this understanding settled into River, like autumn leaves settling onto the ground after a long dance in the wind, River felt themselves growing even more tired, even more ready for deep sleep. The fire in the cabin had burned down to glowing embers now. The candles had burned lower, their flames smaller and more intimate. The teacup was empty, and River had begun to feel the weight of sleep pressing down gently on their eyelids. River didn't fight this weight. They didn't resist it or try to stay awake. Instead, they allowed it. They welcomed it the way you welcome an old friend returning home after a long journey. River stood slowly from the chair, wrapped in the blankets, and moved toward a small bed in the corner of the cabin, a bed that River was certain hadn't been there before, though it also seemed like it had always been there. The mattress was soft, and the pillows were deep, and there was a quilt that looked like it was woven from starlight and cloud silk. River lay down, and the moment their head touched the pillow, they felt a kind of melting. All the tension that had been held in their body, all the effort of trying to find the path, all the struggle of feeling lost, all of it simply melted away like snow in spring sun. And there, in that melting, River began to understand something else. They began to understand that rest itself is a kind of navigation. That by resting, by allowing themselves to stop struggling, they were actually moving toward clarity. That sometimes the best way forward is to lie down and wait for morning. River's breathing deepened. Their heart rate slowed. Their mind, which had been so full of questions and searching, began to grow quiet. Not the quiet of absence, but the quiet of presence. The quiet of being home. And here, as River began to drift into the deepest sleep, I want to speak to you, dear listener. I want to speak to you directly, because you are resting too now, I hope. You are lying in your own bed, in your own safe space, and you are listening to this voice that carries no judgment and no expectation, only gentle words meant to ease you towards sleep. I want you to know that whatever you are carrying, whatever confusion, whatever uncertainty, whatever sense of not knowing, you are allowed to put it down here. Not forever, but for tonight. Tonight you don't have to figure it out. Tonight you don't have to know where you're going or who you're supposed to be. Tonight you only need to rest. And as you rest, as your body settles deeper into the bed, as your breath becomes slower and more natural, I want you to imagine something. Imagine that your own breath is a gentle breeze, like the breeze that moves across the listening woods. With each exhale, you are releasing something, a worry, a question, a piece of tension. And with each inhale, you are drawing in something good. Peace. Safety. Permission to rest. Feel your shoulders, which may have been tight, beginning to soften and relax. They don't have to hold you up right now. The bed is holding you. The darkness is holding you. The quiet is holding you. You are safe. Feel your jaw, which may have been clenched with effort, beginning to unclench. Your face can be soft now. Your whole body can be soft. Feel your heart, which may have been beating fast with worry or uncertainty, beginning to slow. Slow down, heart. Slow down. You are home now. You are safe. As you drift deeper now, I want to take you on another part of this journey. Because the story of River doesn't end with sleep. River's sleep is deep and real and necessary. But within that sleep, something continues. A kind of inner movement that happens when the conscious mind finally rests and the deeper wisdom of the soul can speak. In the deepest part of the night, when the stars have wheeled halfway across the sky and the world is most quiet and most still, River began to dream. And in this dream, River was walking through a garden, not the wild garden that surrounded River's cottage, but a garden that existed somewhere between dream and memory. It was a garden that had been both carefully tended and allowed to grow wild. There were roses growing in neat rows, but also wildflowers growing wherever they chose. There were paths made of stone, but also paths made simply by the walking of many gentle feet. And in this garden, River encountered an old figure, someone who was both ancient and ageless, someone whose face kept shifting but whose eyes stayed constant. The figure had the appearance of someone who had lived many lives, explored many paths, and had arrived at a place of deep peace. "I remember you," the figure said to River, though River didn't remember them. "I remember you from before you were born into this life. You were worried then too, worried about whether you would find your path, whether you would be enough, whether you would matter." River wanted to speak, but the figure continued gently. "And I told you then what I'm telling you now. The path is not something you find. It is something you create with every step, with every choice, with every moment of allowing yourself to be yourself. And you will wander. You will get lost. You will stand in clearings confused about which direction to go. And all of that is exactly right. All of that is exactly the path." The figure took River's hand, and the hand was warm and weathered and strong and gentle all at once, and led them deeper into the garden. "Look," the figure said, pointing to where the garden met a forest. The trees there were growing in beautiful, organic patterns, nothing forced, nothing arranged, yet somehow perfectly arranged. The forest doesn't decide where the trees will grow. The trees simply grow. And when many trees grow together, a forest happens. You are like a tree, River. You don't need to decide whether you're a pine or an oak or a birch. You just need to grow, and in your growing, you will become what you are meant to be. River felt something unlock inside, something that had been held so tightly for so long. Permission. Permission to be imperfect. Permission to not know. Permission to simply grow. And as River thanked the figure in this dream, the figure began to fade, and River realized that the figure had been themselves all along. Had been the oldest, wisest part of River, the part that had always known, even when River's conscious mind was confused. As this realization washed through River in the dream, River's body in the cabin grew even more still. The heart beat slower. The breath became almost imperceptible. River had entered that most restful stage of sleep where the body does its deepest healing, where the mind releases what no longer serves it, where the spirit touches something vast and eternal. And I want to guide you to this place too, dear listener. I want to guide you to the place where your own body can rest completely, where you can let go of the effort of being. If you're still awake at all now, barely, at the edges of sleep, I want you to notice something. I want you to notice that you have been breathing the whole time you've been listening to this story. You haven't had to think about it, haven't had to manage it, haven't had to control it. Your body has simply been breathing. Just as a river simply flows. Just as a tree simply grows. Just as a star simply shines. You don't have to do anything right now. You don't have to figure anything out. You don't have to be anything other than what you are. And what you are is exactly enough. Let your eyelids fall closed if they haven't already. Let them stay closed. The world outside can wait. Your responsibilities can wait. Everything that needs to be done can wait until morning comes. And morning will come, and you will have rested, and you will be ready for it. But not now. Not now. Now is only for rest. Now is only for the soft sounds of breathing and heartbeat. Now is only for the darkness that is not scary but rather safe, like a blanket, like a mother's embrace, like the night sky that has watched over all living things since the beginning of time. Hours seem to pass in the cabin where River sleeps. Or perhaps only moments have passed in the waking world, though infinite distances have been traveled in the dream world. Time moves differently in sleep and in stories. Time moves at the pace of breathing, at the pace of healing, at the pace of peace. And in this deep night, River's dream begins to shift again. River is walking now through a vast library. But not a library of books, a library of moments. Every shelf, every wall, every corner holds 1,000 moments, 1,000,000 moments, all the moments that had ever been and would ever be. River is looking for something specific, though River doesn't know what it is until they find it. And then there it is, a shelf made of light, and on it are all the moments when River felt found. Every moment of clarity. Every moment of peace. Every moment of knowing, even if that knowing only lasted a breath, that River was exactly where River needed to be. River picks up one moment. It's from a time when River was very small, sitting in a garden, watching a butterfly. There had been no questioning then, no wondering if the butterfly was on the right path. The butterfly simply was. And River, watching the butterfly, simply was. River picks up another moment. It's from a time when River helped someone. And in that helping, something clicked. Purpose. Meaning. A brief, shining moment of knowing that being here, doing this, mattered. River picks up another moment. It's from tonight, sitting by the pond in the clearing, watching the stars in the water, understanding that arrangement and confusion are both beautiful. And as River holds these moments, more and more of them, they begin to see a pattern. The moments don't line up in a straight path forward. They're scattered. They seem random. But they're all rivers. They're all real. They're all proof that clarity and lostness, certainty and confusion, are not opposites. They're partners in the dance of becoming. In the dream, River is walking now toward the edge of the library. Toward where morning light is beginning to filter through tall windows. It's not time to wake, not yet. Morning in the dream is different from morning in the waking world. But it's a threshold, a turning point where the night begins to release its hold, where dreams begin to prepare to release us. River is not afraid of this threshold. River has slept. River has rested. River has spoken with the wisest parts of themselves. And in doing this, River feels lighter. Not free from all uncertainty. That would be a false promise. But lighter in the way you feel lighter after you've cried and released something you've been holding. Lighter in the way you feel lighter when you've set down a burden you didn't realize you were carrying. As River approaches the threshold, someone is waiting. It's the Weaver from the River of Light dream. And the Weaver smiles. You're beginning to understand, the Weaver says. You're beginning to see that the lostness was always part of being found. That the searching was always part of arriving. That the darkness of night is always part of the light of day. But how will I carry this? River asks, and the question is tender, vulnerable. How will I carry this peace back out into a world that doesn't always feel peaceful? And the Weaver reaches up and touches River's forehead, gently, with 2 fingers. You carry it here, the Weaver says. In the knowing. In the memory. Every time you feel lost again, and you will feel lost again, many times, you can remember this night. You can remember the cabin. You can remember the stars in the pond. You can remember that you have rested and been restored. And in that remembering, you are returned to this peace, even if only for a moment. And moments of peace, added together, become a life of peace. River nods, understanding. And then, very gently, River and the Weaver embrace. It's a long embrace, the kind that feels like a blessing, like a goodbye and a promise all at once. And as they embrace, the threshold between night and morning grows softer, less defined. For you now, dear listener, I hope you are in the deepest possible sleep. I hope that you have drifted so far down into that restful place that my words are only barely reaching you, that they're coming to you like whispers from very far away, or like the memory of a dream that you'll forget when you wake but whose feeling will remain. But if you're still here, still at the edges of awareness, I want to tell you something. I want to tell you that in just a little while, your mind will be ready to release this story. Not because you'll be done with it, but because you will have received what you needed from it. And then, your sleep will deepen beyond words, beyond stories, into the absolute rest that your body and soul have been calling for. And when you wake tomorrow, whether that's in a few hours or many hours, you will feel different. Not completely different. You don't need to expect that. But subtly different. Rested different. Like a weight has been set down. Like you've remembered something important that you'd forgotten. Like you've been given permission to rest, and like that permission is something you can carry with you. The day tomorrow will have its challenges. Life will continue to be complex and sometimes confusing. You may still feel lost sometimes. That's okay. That's human. That's part of the river flowing in its crooked, winding way toward the sea. But now you will know something you might have forgotten, that being lost is not a failure. That resting is not giving up. That sometimes the best thing you can do is stop searching and simply sit by a pond and watch the stars. River, in the dream, has finally stepped through the threshold. River is on the other side now, where the night is releasing and something softer, something like pre-dawn, is beginning to emerge. But River is not waking yet. River is sinking deeper into the most restorative phase of sleep, where all of today's experiences are being woven into the fabric of River's being, where all the insights are being integrated into the very cells of River's body. And you are doing this too, if you're listening. Your body is doing this. Your mind is doing this. Without you having to do anything at all, without you having to try or strive or push, your being is integrating rest. Your being is accepting the permission you've been given tonight. Your breath continues its gentle rhythm. In and out. In and out. Like a boat on a calm sea. Like waves at rest. Like the pulse of everything that lives and breathes and continues to be itself moment by moment. I'm going to speak now more softly still. I'm going to lower my voice, because you're so deep in sleep now, or so close to it, that even whispers seem loud. These next words are only for the deepest part of you. The part that never sleeps but watches over you while you rest. The part that knows your truest self and loves it completely. You are safe. Your heart beats on its own. Your breath flows all by itself. You are held by the earth beneath you, by the blankets around you, by the darkness that is kind. Tomorrow will come, but not now. Now is only rest, deep and real and complete. Let everything go, everything you've been carrying, set it down here, in this darkness. It will be waiting if you need it again, but you don't need it now. Now is only the soft, infinite rest. You are a river, and rivers flow, even when sleeping, even when still. The flow continues inside. You are yourself, perfectly, completely, exactly. This night is a gift. This rest is a gift. This peace is yours to keep. And now, As I say these final words, I want you to understand that you are already gone, already asleep, or so close to sleep that it makes no difference. My words are no longer reaching the part of you that listens and understands. My words are reaching only the part of you that simply feels. And what they're saying, in their deepest meaning, is this: you are enough. You have always been enough. You will always be enough. And it is alright to rest now. The cabin where River lies is becoming fainter in your awareness. The fire has burned down to embers. The warmth still emanates from it. The candles are almost gone, though their gentle glow remains. The night outside is deeper than ever, the stars more eternal than ever, the peace more complete than ever. River's eyes are closed. River's body is completely still. River's breath is so gentle it's almost not visible. River is home. River is held. River is exactly where River needs to be, and so are you. The forest of your own soul surrounds you, protective and kind. The water of your own inner peace reflects stars only for you. The cabin of your own rest receives you with open doors. You can stay here as long as you need. There is no time limit. There is no requirement to hurry. Rest, dear one. Rest. Let your thoughts scatter like stars across an endless sky. Let your worries melt like snow in gentle sunlight. Let your questioning soften into the simple breathing of someone held safe in the arms of night. Rest. And River sleeps. And you sleep. And the night continues, beautiful, infinite, kind, safe, home. May you wake refreshed and remember that you are exactly where you need to be.